here's your host, Chelsea Edwards.
Hey besties, welcome to another episode of Chattin with Chelsea. I'm your daytime bestie, Chelsea Edwards. Today's show could save you or the life of someone you know. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and although it's a heavy conversation, it is important to talk about the things or the signs that lead up to domestic violence before it gets to that point. And it's also important to break the silence that can cost women and men their lives. I had the honor of hearing survivor stories while emceeing the Gustavia Pearls Annual Unity Festival. For over a decade, this organization has been a lifeline, providing connections to safe housing, transportation, essentials, legal advocacy, and emotional support. Beyond crisis care, they focus on healing, empowerment, and long-term restoration so survivors don't just survive, they thrive. Welcome to the show, Trina Russell, founder of Gustavia Pearls Women's Outreach. What made you want to start this organization?
So the start came in 2012, at the end of 2012 when I lost my parents. My mother passed in August of 2012 suddenly. My father passed in December of 2012, and that was unexpected as well.
Wow.
And then going into 2013, I was dealing with depression, very deep depression. And then I started counseling. During that time that I started counseling is when things from my past began to get uncovered, and we began to talk about my experience with domestic violence and how I was still dealing with the effects from domestic violence, dealing with depression. All of those things kind of coupled in, and it just exploded. And so as I was going through that stage of depression, God spoke to me and told me to start a nonprofit organization called Gustavia Pearls in honor of my mother. Her name is Margie Gustavia Russell, and in honor of her and the work that she had done through the years. She had a ministry, Open Door Church, and she was actually the pastor, and she had a shelter that housed battered women with children. And from there, I actually worked with her, not willingly, but I worked with her during those years. And I kind of seen the lives that came in and out of these shelters. And as I said, it was by force, but I had no idea that it would come full circle after she passed, and God asked me to start the work up again.
Absolutely. Now, you survived, thankfully,
Yes.
your domestic abuse relationship that you were in for several years.
Yes.
What was the turning point for you where you said to yourself, like, I got to get out of this?
The turning point for me were my children. I had to live for them. That was my turning point. And I realized in order for me to live a healthy, safe life, I needed to do that for them. I didn't want them to grow up in a home where it involved violence. It was unhealthy. I didn't want them to do that because I didn't grow up in that type of household, and I wanted the same for my children. And so my children really were my inspiration to look at life from a different perspective.
Was there a part of you that just didn't want your children to think that this behavior was okay, to normalize it, maybe repeat it?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't want them to be exposed to it at all, and in any aspect of it. I didn't want them to see it. And so I made the decision I needed to take those steps and distance myself and distance them from that type of environment.
How are the kids doing today?
They're great.
Yeah.
They're great.
All right, that's good to hear.
And they had no idea that they were really part of me moving forward because they were very young.
Yeah.
So they really didn't know anything about it. My children heard my story as early as, I think probably in 2018, 2019 was the first time that they heard me share my story.
What did
They're
they
adults.
think? They're adults now.
Mm-hmm.
What did they think when they heard that story finally?
They asked me why didn't I share it with them? Why didn't I tell them?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was protecting them, that I didn't want them to know that part of my life. I didn't want them to know that that even existed or even know anything about it. Mm. Cycles happen. And so I was shielding them from anything that could possibly come forward.
Did they understand that part of it?
They didn't understand why I didn't want to tell them.
Yeah.
So I was like, you can't keep hiding secrets. You guys have secrets. You should tell us things. And maybe that would help us. But just in my thinking, not saying it was the best option for me.
How do you feel now? Do you feel like you could have told them sooner?
For me, it was the best option for me.
There you go. Stand by it. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll have more on you and your organization when we come back. You guys keep it right here. We're back with Trina Russell, domestic violence survivor and founder of Gustavia Pearls Women's Outreach. What are some things that people should be aware of? Maybe warning signs, red flags that may lead into a domestic violence relationship?
Yeah, so 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men are affected by domestic violence. They experience this.
Is that high for men as well?
That is
Wow.
for men. It actually would probably be higher if more men speak out about it. But some of the signs that you can look for or you can recognize is someone invoking their fear themselves. They become aggressive, manipulative in a relationship. They want to kind of bring you to a place of isolation. We hear this all the time. People have friends, they have families, and next thing you know, they get in a relationship with someone, and then that person wants to have them to themselves. Sometimes people even move to a different city from people that they're familiar with, from their families. They want to move them away so that they can have them all
to themselves.
And then do as they will. And before you know it, now you're going down that path of a violent situation, because it goes from a conversation, it goes from mental health, with them disrupting your mental health. It goes into now them wanting to become aggressive, and then ultimately it becomes a physical abuse.
And it might be a situation that you never imagined yourself being in, but it's a slippery slope. You start with those smaller red flags that you mentioned, and then it could grow or snowball into a whole other situation. What would you say to someone in that same situation that you were in, or somebody who is starting to see those early warning signs?
Recognize the signs, recognize the red flags. Don't just push them away. Don't ignore them. When you see them, you recognize them, and then you distance yourself from that person. You cut them off. Don't think that you can save them. Don't think that you can fix them. Don't think that you can change them. That is that person, that is their behavior. It will get worse. And my advice to them is to get away.
And I know that is hard to hear for a lot of people because they love this person. They may have stuck with them through all sorts of situations. So they feel like they've already invested this time in this person, and they probably are hopeful for change, hoping that this person will turn around, or this was just maybe a one-off incident. But your eyes say otherwise, Trina.
I will say this. That was my story exactly. I felt like, okay, this one time, maybe, it was a mistake. Maybe their tone, maybe their actions, they didn't mean it, right? And from there, you continue to move forward in the relationship with the person. They come back and they tell you, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Trust me, which is the worst thing. Trust me, it won't happen again. And then next thing you know, something else happens. Another word that is spoken to you that you know good and well they shouldn't say to you. They shouldn't call you those names. But then you try to overlook it and say, okay, well, maybe they weren't feeling their best at that moment. And maybe maybe they really do love me, but they were just having a bad day. Notice what I'm saying. We're so focused on the other person and how the other person feels, how the other person reacts, to where we stop taking in consideration of ourselves.
Right.
How does that make us feel? We overlook that part because we're too busy pleasing the other person. And before you know it, you're in a cycle, you're in a pattern, and then it goes downhill from there.
Wow.
You look back, and now you're in a whole abusive relationship.
Wow. Some hard truths right there, seriously. Now, your organization, Gustavia Pearls, you help people get out of these situations, and you do a lot to help people across the board. Tell us a little bit about that.
So yes, with the organization, although our name is Gustavia Pearls Women's Outreach, we get that question a lot. Are you just serving women? Are you just supporting women? And the answer to that is no. We like to be inclusive. We're more of an inclusive organization because we know the conversation should be broadened to welcome in men, because men also are affected by domestic violence. They're abused. But the thing with men is that they are so scared to speak out because of the stigma that's attached to it. They don't want to say anything about, hey, I feel like I'm in this abusive relationship,
right,
because sometimes that may feel like, you know, it's testing their manhood, but it really isn't. Just like with a woman, you find yourself in it, you don't know how you got in it, and then here you are. That's the same thing with a man.
Yeah.
And so we serve families across the board, men, women, children. We serve them across the board. We have programs where if a family is in need of housing, emergency housing services, we provide them with that support, or we can refer them to other agencies that can provide them with that housing, immediate housing service. We also have children's services where we have programs for them. We talk about bullying. We talk about love doesn't hurt. And even if a child is involved or they live in a home where violence is present, we tell them this is not the right behavior. It is not okay to hit. It is not okay to accept when someone is saying something that hurts you, because words hurt just like the physical.
Right. There's
hurt.
Physical, there's emotional, there's verbal. It's
all of it. It hurts. And so we talk to youth about that as well. We want them to understand, even if you do have a behavior where you think it's okay to result to violence, it's not okay. And anything unresolved that is not addressed will snowball into what we're looking at and what we're talking about today.
Wow.
So start early with that conversation with the children, and then we won't be looking at right now.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that you help these groups that may often be overlooked during this domestic violence conversation.
Yes.
The men and the children as well. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with another group that is helping to support children in these situations. You guys don't want to miss it. Be right back. Domestic violence and the mistreatment of children often happen in the same households at the same time. So welcome Carrie McCracken, Executive Director of the Children's Assessment Center. You all help with trying to prevent these situations for children and also helping them recover from these situations, even maybe have to get pulled out of these situations as well. Tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Well, our primary focus at the CAC is sexually abused children. But as you can imagine, when there's violence in the home, when you've got a bully in the home, they abuse sometimes the whole family. So those often go hand in hand.
Yeah. So I've looked at some stats, some numbers on this, but you say that those numbers may not be as accurate because we're talking 30 to 60% of households experiencing this, but you think it could be even more?
Yes, because people are afraid to report. And again, people abusing children and women, their spouses, like our last guest said, men can be abuse victims as well, but they're bullies, right? And so there's a lot of threats involved, like if you tell anybody, you know, I'm going to harm somebody else in the family, or a lot of times there's finances at stake, like if it's the breadwinner bullying those in the family, the victims are afraid to lose that family member because they're counting on them.
Right.
So there's a lot of reasons people don't report, but so it's a very underreported crime.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the long-term effects you've seen with children who, even if they aren't directly being physically abused, are witnessing this in their homes?
Well, if you think about it, the adult's responsibility is to keep children safe and to make them feel safe. And a child that doesn't feel safe is traumatized. A child, the victim, is traumatized. So kids that enter adulthood with unresolved trauma are way more likely to have negative outcomes such as mental health issues, drug abuse, poverty, unwanted pregnancy, physical problems, and touches with the criminal justice system. I can tell you, I'm kind of a recovering lawyer. This is a second career for me. And in my past career, I was a prosecutor and then a criminal defense lawyer. And while doing that, I represented indigent clients. And the clients that I had that were kind of going through the system, all of them trauma victims. So I would be trying to maybe come up with alternatives to incarceration for someone. You know, are there drug addiction problems that need to be addressed? And so I'd get into their history a little bit. And I honestly had a client one time telling me, I witnessed my dad murder my mom.
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, well, did you ever get any help for that? Of course, the answer was no.
No therapy. He just kept moving through life.
Yeah. And that's where he wound up. And a lot of people, highly successful people, had trauma in their life and they didn't get the help that they would have needed. So I'm certainly not here to tell you that that means there's no hope, because people are resilient, kids are resilient, but they have a way better chance if we can intervene.
Yeah. So tell me about that intervention. Are we talking getting the whole family together, trying to teach parents how to be those protectors? Is that what we're doing? Okay.
Yeah, so at the Children's Assessment Center, one of the things I'm very prideful of is our training program. So we train adults, how to recognize signs and symptoms of child abuse. But we go into the schools and we do a program called Child Safety Matters. And the curriculum is different for the kindergartners than the, as you get older, it changes and the message gets a little more, age appropriate.
Yeah.
But it teaches about sexual abuse, mental abuse, bullying, cyber safety, but it gives kids tools to not be as vulnerable, right? It talks to them about finding a trusted adult, because if the abuse is happening in the home, who else can you lean to? So very proud of that program, and it's successful. And I can tell you, when we go into those schools, it's not uncommon for a child to come up to the instructor at the end of the class and say, by the way, this is happening in my home.
Wow.
So they're reporting right in the,
Wow.
not always sexual abuse, it can be different types of abuse, but right in the moment they will come up and tell that something is happening. So just giving them a voice is important.
Yes, because they also need to know that,
Yeah.
hey, this is not okay, this is not normal.
And they need to know that if you do speak up, you're not in trouble.
Right.
This didn't happen to you because you put yourself in a position or because you're a bad person. You did nothing wrong.
Wow. Anything else you feel like people should know about children tied into this domestic violence situation or
just
conversation?
like your last guest said, don't forget about the children. You know, we focus on the abuse victim, and it is important to get, you know, the victim safe, whether it be the mom or the dad. But the children are watching that. Those are their role models, so they may think that's normal behavior. And again, you have challenged their sense of safety. So just make sure they're safe, make sure they're communicated with, and just watching out for their needs.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you do, taking care of the children. You guys are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this. Thank you for joining us for this domestic violence conversation. Very important. Carrie, do you want to leave the folks with a final thought?
Absolutely, just don't forget about the kids. Like I said before, it's our job as adults to keep our children safe and let them have that feeling of safety. And so when there's things happening in the home, remember that it affects not just the person that's being victimized, but everybody in the home.
Yes. And you, Trina?
Yes, so I would like to say to those who are still in this domestic violence situation, I would like to tell you that there is hope, there is help, you are not alone, there is a way out, and when you get out, please do not go back. Please do not go back. And I want to say also, the silence that we break today are the lives that we save tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you two ladies do, and thank you for breaking that silence as well. You guys keep up with us on social at Chelsea Show Fox. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you on the next Chattin' with Chelsea.